If you suffer from gas, constipation, or bloating, this is the last video you need to watch. Find out why. If you've been drinking peppermint tea, ginger tea, or warm lemon water to help your digestion, and you're still bloated, still gassy, still constipated, I need you to stop and watch this. Because there's a very good chance that at least one of those drinks is making your gut worse. Not because the drink is bad, because no one told you which one is right for your gut specifically. And the difference isn't small. For some people, peppermint tea relieves intestinal cramping within 20 minutes. For others, that exact same tea worsens reflux so severely it disrupts their sleep. Same drink, same dose, completely opposite outcomes. That's the question I want you to leave this video understanding. Not what to drink, but why the same remedy works for one person and quietly harms another. And once you understand the answer, everything changes. But here's what I actually want you to stay for. There's a second thing, something that took me years in practice to fully see, and I'm going to show it to you later in this video. It's about a habit that millions of people over 60 are doing specifically to help their gut. It's considered healthy, it's widely recommended. And in the wrong conditions, it can turn a manageable problem into a significantly worse one within days. I'll name it, I'll explain why it happens, and I'll tell you exactly what to do instead. I'm Dr. Rose, urologist. I've been practicing medicine for 12 years, and this channel exists because there are things your gut has been trying to tell you that no one has taken the time to explain. If that's the kind of medicine you want, subscribe. And let's start with what's actually happening inside your gut right now. Let me start with something most people have completely wrong. When your gut produces gas, that gas is not random. It's not air. It's not something vague happening in your stomach. It's fermentation. Specifically, it's what happens when food that wasn't fully broken down in your upper digestive tract reaches your colon, and your gut bacteria do exactly what bacteria do. They ferment whatever is left over. That fermentation produces gas. That gas creates pressure, and pressure is what creates bloating. That tightness, that distension, that feeling of something stuck inside that won't move. Now, constipation is a slightly, but they connect at the root. When stool moves too slowly through the colon does its job. It absorbs water from whatever is passing through it. It's designed to, but when movement is slow, the colon absorbs too much water. The stool becomes dry and dense. Think of a sponge that gets wrung out completely. It becomes stiff, hard, difficult to move. That's what's happening. Not a broken gut, a gut that's working exactly as designed, but under conditions that don't support healthy movement. So the question becomes, what does the gut need to move well? It needs fluid, it needs warmth, it needs fiber, but the right kind and the right amount. It needs the muscular walls of the intestine to contract rhythmically, and it needs the nervous system, the same system that responds to stress, to sleep, to fear, to stay calm enough to let all of that happen. I want you to hold that list for a moment because every drink that actually helps the gut addresses at least one of those conditions. And every drink that doesn't help or makes things worse is missing one or more of them. Now, back to the question I opened with. Why does the same drink help one person and worsen another? That's where I want to go next, and the answer is going to change how you choose what to drink. I had a patient, I'll call her Margaret, 68 years old, who swore by peppermint tea. Every time she felt bloated, she made herself a cup and she felt better within 20 minutes. She told her sister about it. Her sister tried it. Same age, same symptoms. Within a week, her sister called her back and told her the peppermint tea was making her reflux, so much worse, she'd stopped sleeping on her back. Same tea, same symptom, opposite outcomes. This is not a mystery, it's anatomy. Peppermint contains a compound, menthol, that relaxes smooth muscle. For someone whose problem is intestinal spasm, cramping, gas trapped by tight muscle walls, that relaxation is exactly what's needed. The muscle loosens, the gas moves, the bloating eases. But your gut and your esophagus share a valve, the lower esophageal sphincter. That same smooth muscle relaxation that releases intestinal spasm can also relax that valve. And when that valve relaxes in someone who has reflux, stomach acid travels upward. More burning, more discomfort, worse sleep. So, Is peppermint good or bad? It depends on where your problem is. This is why I always ask patients before recommending anything. Where do you feel the discomfort most? High snorts, up near the chest, the throat after eating, or low, the lower abdomen, the distension, the bloating that comes hours after a meal? The higher the discomfort, the comfort, more cautious you should be with peppermint. The same principle applies to ginger, which is next. And ginger has a similar split. For most people, ginger genuinely helps with gastric emptying. It contains compounds, gingerols, and shogalls that support the stomach's ability to move its contents into the small intestine. For people who feel heaviness after meals, slow digestion, frequent belching, ginger can be a real support. But for someone with severe acid reflux or a sensitive mucosal lining, strong doses of ginger can irritate rather than soothe. I'm going to tell you for each drink I recommend today which profile it fits best, because you're not looking for the drink that helps people with gut problems. You're looking for the drink that fits your gut specifically. And before I get to the full list, there's something I need to explain first. Something about fiber that almost no one talks about and that I've seen cause more harm than almost any other well-intentioned habit. I'll get there. But first, the drinks that genuinely help and how to use them. Let me go through these methodically. Not as a list you write down, as a clinical toolkit you choose from. Cumin and fennel water. This is one of the most underused combinations in digestive support, and it's been sitting in kitchen cabinets for generations. Cumin contains compounds, thymol among them, that appear to support enzyme secretion in the digestive tract. Fennel contains anethole, which has been associated with a relaxing on intestinal smooth muscle. Together, they address both enzyme support and muscle tone. The preparation matters. Boil 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds and 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds in 2 cups of water for 8 to 10 minutes. Strain it. Drink it warm in small sips after a meal that feels heavy or after a day when you've noticed more gas than usual. The limitation in some people, especially those with acid sensitivity, the intensity of these compounds can cause mild heartburn. If you notice that, reduce the amount or drink it less frequently. Warm water with lemon. I want to correct something here that gets repeated incorrectly. The benefit of warm lemon water in the morning is not that it melts fat or detoxifies the liver. And that language isn't supported by clinical evidence. What is real is the gastrocolic reflex. When warm liquid enters your stomach, especially in the morning when your digestive system is waking up, it activates a reflex that signals the colon to begin moving. That's not a theory. That's a predictable, well-documented physiological response. For people who struggle with constipation, this morning activation can help retrain the gut to move at a regular time. Over several weeks, the body begins to anticipate that signal. The lemon adds mild stimulation of salivary glands and digestive secretions. But the key ingredient is warmth, not temperature. Warmth. One caution, if you have significant reflux or active gastritis, reduce the lemon. Even warm water alone activates the reflex. Chia or flaxseed water, these two are both valuable, but they work differently, and I want you to understand why. Chia absorbs water and forms a gel. That gel adds bulk to stool and helps it retain moisture as it moves through the colon. This is important because stool that has enough moisture stays soft and moves more easily. Flaxseed contains both soluble fiber and a mucilaginous compound that lubricates the intestinal wall. It also contains omega-3 fatty acids that may support the intestinal lining. For both, the preparation rule is simple but critical. Always hydrate them before drinking. Soak a tablespoon of chia in a glass of warm water for 10 to 15 minutes before drinking. For flaxseed, lightly grind it or boil it briefly to make those compounds accessible. And this leads me directly to something I need to address now, because it's the single most common mistake I see in patients who are trying to help their gut and making it worse. I'm going to get to it in a moment. But first, let me show you where external support can make a real difference, because this next part matters for what I'm about to explain. In my practice, when patients are working on restoring gut rhythm, reducing fermentation, softening stool, supporting transit, I often look at what they're already consuming and what might be missing. Many of the compounds I've been describing, the digestive enzyme support, the motility supporting botanicals, the prebiotic fiber that feeds the right bacteria, exist in concentrated form in natural products designed specifically for this. I've had patients who've struggled with gas and bloating for years make significant changes after supporting their gut microbiome and digestive enzyme activity more consistently. Not as a replacement for habits, as a foundation under them. If you want to explore that kind of support, you can find what I recommend at newvisionhealthcenter.com. I'll leave the link in the description. But here's the thing, and this is what I actually need you to understand, because I've watched patients go to the pharmacy, buy a bottle of something labeled digestive support, and make their symptoms significantly worse. Not because the product was bad, because they made the same mistake that almost everyone makes when they try to increase fiber. This is the part most people miss, and it's the part that explains why healthy habits can feel like they're making things worse. I want to slow down here, because what I'm about to tell you is what I wish someone had told my patients before they came to me, frustrated, discouraged, and convinced their gut was hopeless. Here's what happens. Someone decides to improve their diet. They start eating oatmeal in the morning. They add chia seeds. They eat more salad, more fruit, more vegetables. They buy a fiber supplement. They start drinking green smoothies. Within 2 weeks, their gas is worse. Their bloating is worse. In some cases, their constipation is worse. They conclude, healthy food makes me feel terrible. My gut just can't handle this. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that fiber, every kind of fiber, requires water to do its job. Soluble fiber absorbs liquid and forms gel. Insoluble fiber adds bulk. Both of these functions depend entirely on there being enough water in the colon for the fiber to work with. When you increase fiber without increasing fluid, the fiber travels through your digestive system and pulls water from the intestinal walls instead. Stool becomes denser, not softer. Transit slows, not speeds. Gas production increases because more undigested material is available for fermentation. Fiber without water doesn't help the gut, it works against it. And here's the version of this that I see most often in patients over 60. As we age, our sense of thirst decreases. This is a documented, consistent physiological change. You feel less thirsty, so you drink less water. But your kidneys are less efficient, your mucosal tissues are drier, and your colon needs just as much, if not more, water to maintain stool consistency. So, a 65-year-old who adds chia seeds to their morning routine, doesn't increase water, and already has a blunted thirst response, is essentially adding dry material to an already dry system. This is why the sequence matters. This is what I meant at the beginning of this video when I said there was something more important than a list of helpful drinks. The fiber has to come with the water, always, without exception. The practical rule I give patients, every time you add a tablespoon of chia, flaxseed, or any concentrated fiber source, you add at minimum an extra 12 ahs of water to that day, not optionally, as part of the preparation. Now, there's a second layer to this that I want to make sure you understand before we move on, because we've been talking about what helps the gut, but there's an equally important conversation about what quietly harms it. And the list might surprise you. I want to be honest with you here. Some of the drinks that are harming people's gut health are drinks that have a reputation for being helpful or at least neutral. And I think it's more useful to you to be specific than to be reassuring. Carbonated soft drinks and sweetened beverages, carbonation can create a temporary sensation of relief, a belch, a feeling of pressure releasing. But the gas in carbonated drinks is additional gas entering your system. For someone who is already producing too much fermentation gas, adding more gas from outside creates more pressure, not less. And the sugar, particularly high fructose corn syrup and artificially added fructose, is fermented by gut bacteria at a different rate than other sugars. For people with sensitive intestinal flora, this can significantly increase gas production and loose stools. Protein shakes without fiber or fluid adjustment. This one comes up more in my practice than people expect because many of my patients over 60 are correctly trying to maintain muscle mass. Teen supplementation is often appropriate, but whey protein in particular can be difficult for some adults to fully absorb, especially if lactase activity has decreased with age, unabsorbed. Protein in the colon is fermented by bacteria. More fermentation means more gas, And when patients dramatically increase protein intake without also adjusting fiber and fluid, stool can harden significantly. If you're using protein shakes, pay attention to how your gut responds in the 48 hours after. That's your clearest signal. Alcohol. I'm not going to tell you to never drink, but I do want you to understand what alcohol does to the intestinal lining. Alcohol increases the permeability of the intestinal wall, what some researchers call intestinal permeability, or leaky gut in simplified language. It disrupts the balance of beneficial gut bacteria. It causes dehydration that directly affects stool consistency, and it inflames the mucosal lining in a way that can persist for days after a single significant intake. This is why the day after drinking, many people experience either constipation from the dehydration or looser stools from the mucosal irritation. Heavy dairy drinks. For many adults over 60, lactase production has declined. This doesn't mean everyone over 60 is lactose intolerant, but a significant portion of people who have persistent gas and bloating and who consume milk-based drinks regularly have never considered whether dairy is contributing. A simple experiment. Remove milk-based drinks for 1 week. If gas and bloating noticeably improve, you have your answer. Now, I've given you the mechanism. I've given you the tools and the cautions. What I want to get to now is the part that ties it together in you, because knowing what to drink is only useful if you know when and how to use it. And there's a piece of this that most people skip entirely, and it's the piece I think matters most. Here's something I learned in my second year of practice and have never stopped believing. The gut is not a machine you fix, it's a rhythm you tend. I want to explain what I mean by that because it changes the entire approach to what we've been talking about. The colon has its own internal clock. It's most active in the morning, typically within the first hour after waking. This isn't a preference. It's a circadian pattern driven by the same biological rhythms that govern your sleep-wake cycle. Your colon expects activity in the morning. It's designed for it. When you wake up at different times every day, skip breakfast, drink only cold water or nothing at all for the first hour, and then eat your largest meal at night, you are working directly against your gut's native rhythm. No drink fixes that. Misalignment, not ginger tea, not cumin water, not anything I've described today. What the drink does, warm lemon water, warm cumin water, a soaked tablespoon of chia, is give the gut a consistent morning signal. Every day at approximately the same time, a warm liquid activates the gastrocolic reflex. Over several weeks, the gut begins to anticipate that signal. You're not treating a symptom, you're rebuilding a rhythm. This is also why movement matters more than most people realize. Walking, even 20 minutes after a meal, activates the physical movement of the gut wall. The intestine is surrounded by smooth muscle. That muscle contracts in response to stretch, nerve signals, and significantly, movement of the body itself. A sedentary afternoon following a large meal slows transit. A gentle walk supports it. I had a patient, 71, retired, spending most of his days at a desk, who had been constipated for 4 years. He tried every supplement. Nothing worked consistently. I asked him to walk 15 minutes after every meal for 4 weeks. Within 3 weeks, his constipation had improved more than anything else had achieved. Not because walking is magic, because his gut was waiting for a signal it wasn't getting. And there's one more piece of this I want to make sure you understand. It's the connection that took me the longest to fully accept, even though the evidence has been there for years. The gut has its own nervous system, 200 million to 600 million neurons, more than exist in the spinal cord. It communicates directly with the brain through the vagus nerve in both directions. This is not a metaphor. This is anatomy. And what it means, practically, is that your gut responds to emotional and psychological state the same way it responds to food and drink. Chronic stress shifts the gut into a state of altered motility. In some people, stress speeds up transit, urgency, loose stools, cramping. In others, particularly people who hold stress internally, who don't express it easily, stress slows transit down. The gut tightens, gas doesn't move, constipation worsens. I've had patients who ate perfectly, hydrated well, walked every day, and still struggled. And when we addressed the stress, sleep, and nervous system regulation, their gut improved more in a month than it had in years. I'm not going to tell you that stress is the cause of everything, but I will tell you that ignoring it while managing everything else is like watering a plant and forgetting to give it light. The drinks that support the nervous system connection, chamomile, which acts on the gut-brain axis through its calming effects, warm water itself, which activates the parasympathetic state that makes digestion possible. Even black coffee in moderation, which stimulates motility in a way that requires a calm stomach to receive. All of them work better when the nervous system is not in a state of chronic arousal. So, if you're doing everything right and still struggling, I want you to ask yourself honestly, am I sleeping well? Am I giving my body time to be still? If the answer to either of those is no, the drinks are tools working against a current that's too strong. Fix the nervous system, the gut follows. I want to end this part of today's conversation with something that I think is important to say clearly. Everything I've described today, every drink, every habit, every adjustment, is appropriate for functional gut discomfort, for the gas, bloating, and constipation that most people over 60 experience as part of a system that's working suboptimally, not pathologically, but there are signals that mean something different. Blood in the stool, not pink tinges, not occasional spotting from hemorrhoids, consistent, unexplained blood. This requires evaluation, not management. Unintentional weight loss. If you have lost more than 5% of your body weight over 6 months without trying and you also have gut symptoms, this combination needs a physician's attention. Constipation that changes suddenly. If you've had a predictable bowel pattern for years and it changes significantly persistently after age 50 or 60, that change is worth investigating. The gut's sudden shift in behavior is sometimes its loudest way of asking for attention. Pain that is severe or waking you from sleep. Functional gut discomfort rarely wakes people from sleep. Pain that does that has a different origin and needs assessment. I will say this as plainly as I can, home remedies and dietary adjustments support a healthy gut. They do not diagnose and they do not replace evaluation when the signals are serious. If you're managing symptoms that belong in a clinical conversation, have that conversation. Your gut is asking for something. The question is always whether what it's asking for is a change in habit or a change in investigation. Margaret, the woman I told you about at the beginning of this video, the one who had been managing gas for 11 years, we made 3 changes. We didn't start with a new drink. We started with water, just water, more consistently earlier in the day. Then we added warm cumin and fennel water after her largest meal, and we asked her to walk for 15 minutes after dinner. In 6 weeks, she came back and told me it was the first time in 11 years she had gone more than 2 days without significant gas. She didn't need a new diagnosis. She needed her gut to receive the conditions it was asking for. That's the thing about the body. It whispers long before it screams. The gas, the bloating, the constipation, those are not a broken gut. They're a gut that is working exactly as designed in conditions that don't support it. Give it rhythm, give it warmth, give it fiber with fluid, give it movement, give it quiet. Not all at once, in order, consistently. Your gut will respond. Not because you forced it, because you finally gave it what it was asking for. I'll leave the link to New Vision Health Center column in the description for anyone who wants to explore natural support for digestive enzyme function and microbiome balance. And if you want to understand the deep